Hello, this is Steve Suffoletto from Erie Community College. In week 6 of Little Press 2, we finished printing the Easter Bunny baskets, and we had a formal grading of this lab project, and I follow a rubric that has the criterias, the score, the grade, and the expectations. Safety is 10%, participation is 25%, cleanliness is 25%, and then we have print quality at 20%, productivity and waste at 20%. So I want to talk more about this category here and how I graded that. So on Blackboard, I created a document called Assessing Print Quality, where I explained how I did this. And what I want to do now is just demonstrate that quickly on how I did that. So if you recall, we pre-printed the black. We ran about 3,000 sheets, which was around 15 inches. And then we split that into 2 halves. The Monday morning class did 1 half, and the Tuesday afternoon did the other half. And then what I did, oh, by the way, notice something very interesting here. On the gripper edge, the lead edge, you see a red mark here, and you see a blue mark here. That red mark is actually coming from the wet magenta ink, and this blue mark here is coming from the wet cyan ink. And what happens is, because these inks are still wet, if you come over to the printing press, notice we have these feed wheels here. I hope you can see these here. These pulling wheels or feed wheels, you can see some ink on here. Those leave those marks. Okay, so I thought that was interesting. So what I did is I took all the production, the 3,000 sheets, and I jogged them and fanned them out. And then I looked to see if there was any in-feed bounce. On this side, we're pretty good. So this also tells me about positioning the register and if there's any bouncing. So that was pretty good. And then I jogged to the other side, and I hope you can see this. Notice that we have a lot of magenta bouncing up and down on the in-feed, which means the back spring was loose. All right. Then we would jog to the side guide and fan out. And again, we're looking for position and register here. We should see one straight single line. But notice here we have a lot of magenta bouncing. That means we have a lot of magenta bouncing. Now I don't know if these are all contiguous, consecutive in a row, or if they've been separated, because these may have been shuffled several times if you think about it. But the point I'm making here is this magenta is definitely not side guiding, right? So that means either your spring wasn't touching, the paper wasn't touching the metal side guide block, or we had poorly jogged paper, right? Then what I would have done is I would have taken the paper and I would have fanned through them like this, looking for any obvious defects. So there we just pass one right by. So an obvious defect here is you have missing yellow, which means you had doubles in your delivery, blanks in your delivery that came from a poorly adjusted feeder. The other thing you can see here is we have some dry up or catch up at the gripper edge. Now this is sometimes called scum, tint, or tone, but technically there are different causes for that. So I continue to fan through these looking for obvious defects. Sometimes the cyan is drying up, other times the magenta is drying up, and then other times the yellow is drying up, right? Here's some sheets where The yellow was put in backwards, right? And how do you know how the paper should go in? I mean, this should be obvious by now. That mark should always be outward because you can bleed off the back tail end. You can't bleed off the front gripper, so this always has to be the front gripper, right? Oh, more cyan dry up. Now the other thing that was interesting, more cyan dry up. Let me put the, well, I have some samples here. So I made a list of some of the defects. Again, we had blanks because we had doubles in the delivery from a poorly set feeder. So again, this is missing yellow. So the problem was on the yellow pass, the yellow press. Here we had some press sheets put in the wrong way, right? Again, on the yellow. Here we have some cyan dry up and catch up. Here we have magenta dry up, catch up. You're always going to see this at the gripper, so that's why you should always look at the gripper. And here we have some yellow dry up and catch up. Right. So we saw sheets turned around or flipped around the wrong way. We saw side guide register bouncing. We saw in-feed register bouncing. We saw dry up and catch up, sometimes called tint, tone, and scum. And we saw some color variation, lights and darks. We'll talk more about this in a minute. I'll probably do a separate video on that. So, I think what I want to do now is show you something interesting. This was the Tuesday class yellow. This was the Monday class yellow. And it might be difficult to see, but this yellow here is very clean and very bright, very vibrant. This yellow here is dull and dirty and dark. They may be running at exactly the same density. They may be running from the same can of ink, but on the Monday class, if I got my classes correct, I sometimes get them mixed up, they over-inked the press tremendously. As a matter of fact, they had the ink keys open so much that the ink was oozing and dripping through onto the press. So because they had the ink over-inked so much, it made the yellow get dirty. So this is not a good yellow hue. This is the correct yellow hue. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a separate video and show you what I did next. I'm going to, every half inch, sample a sheet, pull it out, measure the densities using a densitometer. This is from X-Rite Model 418. We purchased this back in 193. Back then it was probably around $5,000. So what we would have done here is we would have measured the black, density 104. We would have measured the magenta, density 83. We would have measured the yellow, density 82, and we would have measured the cyan, density 112. And as you know, we have a density target aim that we're shooting for. So for uncoated paper or plain paper, cyan should run to 110, magenta should run to 110, yellow should run to 90, and black should run to 125. And we're giving them all plus or minus 0.5 tolerance limits. So in the case of a black, the black could get as low as 125 minus 5 for 120, or as high as 125 for plus 5 is 130. So as long as it's within the range of 120 to 130, that would be acceptable. Okay, so refer to the next video where we show you the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet data analysis.